Angela sat in her dim prison cell, replaying the past in her mind. Angela sat on the cold floor of her prison cell, staring at the tiny window above her. The sunlight barely reached her, but she didn't mind. The darkness felt more familiar now, like a reflection of her life. She wasn't always like this, a prisoner hated by everyone. Once she was just a girl trying to make her parents happy. The sharp clung of the iron bars closing behind her still echoed in her ears. The weight of guilt crushed her chest. She hadn't planned for her life to turn out this way, but maybe it was always heading here. It all began with her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Obi, whose dreams for Angela were louder than her own. Angela grew up in a strict home. Her parents loved her, but in their own way. They believed they knew what was best for her, even when she didn't agree. "Angela, you must always listen to us," her mother would say. "We want what is best for you." Angela nodded every time, even when her heart whispered something else. As a child, Angela loved computers. She could spend hours taking apart old radios, trying to figure out how they worked. She dreamed of becoming a computer scientist, someone who could create amazing software and machines. "Mama, I want to study computers when I grow up," she once said with bright eyes. Her mother frowned. "No, Angela," her father said firmly. "You will study medicine. Doctors are respected. They save lives." "But Papa," Angela tried to explain, but her father wouldn't listen. "Angela, enough," her mother snapped. "Do you want to shame this family? Everyone expects great things from you. You will be a doctor." Angela's heart sank, but she didn't argue. She had never disobeyed her parents before. She thought maybe, just maybe, if she made them happy, she would be happy too. They came from a middle-class background, proud of their ability to give their daughter a good education. From the moment she was born, Angela was their beacon of hope, a child destined to achieve all the things they never could. "Angela," her mother would say, "you have to work hard in life. Listen to us, and you'll never go astray." Angela nodded every time, or her small hands clutching a pencil as she struggled to write the alphabet perfectly. From the start, she was taught that obedience wasn't optional. Her parents were her guide, her judges, and her only source of approval. As Angela grew older, she learned that disagreeing with her parents only led to disappointment. When she mentioned wanting a new toy, her father would remind her, "Angela, toys don't make you successful. Focus on your studies." Angela learned to suppress her wants and focus on making her parents proud. She excelled in school not because she loved her subjects, but because failing wasn't an option. Her true love was technology. She loved computers, fascinated by their blinking lights and endless possibilities. One afternoon at the age of 16, Angela decided to share her dreams with her parents. "Mama, Papa," she began hesitantly, by wanting to study computer science when I get to university. Her father, reading a newspaper at the time, lowered it slowly. "Computer science. What will you do with that?" Angela felt a wave of nervousness but pressed on. "I want to design programs, maybe even build machines." Her mother looked appalled. "Angela, we didn't send you to school to waste your potential. Computers, machines. No, you'll study medicine. Doctors are respected and they help people." Angela's heart sunk. "But I don't love medicine, Mama." "You'll grow to love it," her father said sharply. "This family needs a doctor, not someone playing with gadgets." Angela wanted to fight back, but her parents' from expressions left no room for argument. In their eyes, obedience was love, and love meant sacrificing her dreams. "Okay, Papa," Angela whispered, her voice barely audible. When Angela got into medical school, her troubles began. She didn't like the subjects and she didn't understand most of the lessons. She felt completely out of place. Her first anatomy class made her stomach tan. Anatomy, pharmacology, surgery. Each class felt like climbing a steep mountain with no end in sight. Her grades were terrible. Her classmates thrived, excited about their future as doctors. But Angela felt like an imposter drowning in a sea of medical terms she barely understood. After her first semester, she failed 3 out of 5 courses. "I can't do this," she told herself, one night crying alone in her dorm room. Her parents visited the school after hearing about her struggles. "Angela, how could you fail?" Her father scolded, pacing the small room. "I'm trying, Papa, but it's too hard," Angela said, her voice trembling. "Trying isn't enough," her mother snapped. "What will people think if you drop out? No daughter of ours will fail." The next day, her parents met with the school's administration. Angela didn't know what they said or how much they paid, but a week later, her grades were mysteriously adjusted. "See, Hermot, we'll take care of everything." But Angela didn't feel relieved. The guilt of passing without earning it weighed heavily on her. With every year that passed, her confidence sunk lower. She wasn't ready to treat patients, but her parents insisted she keep going. Every time she failed an exam, she cried herself to sleep. She wanted to quit so badly, but her parents wouldn't hear of it. "Angela, do you want to disgrace us?" her father shouted when she suggested switching to computer science. "Just finished school," she told herself. "Then maybe you can figure out something else." Years passed, and with her parents' help, Angela graduated from medical school. When Angela graduated, her parents threw a big party. Friends and family came to celebrate Dr. Angela Obi. She wore her graduation gown and smiled for photos, but inside she felt hollow. At the hospital where she started her internship, Angela tried her best to keep up. She relied on colleagues for help, praying every day that no serious emergencies would come her way. One of her senior doctors, Dr. Enkem, noticed her struggles. "Angela, are you okay?" "You seem nervous during procedures, doctor," Enkem asked one day. "I'm fine," Angela lied. She couldn't admit that she wasn't sure she belonged here. Her parents' voices echoed in her mind. "You grew to love it," they had said. But she didn't. After the internship, Angela got a job at the city's general hospital. She tried her best to do well, but deep down she knew she wasn't as good as her colleagues. One fateful day, everything changed. It was a busy afternoon at the hospital. Angela was on duty and the emergency room was unusually quiet. The day the senator was rushed into the hospital began like any other. Angela was alone in the break room, sipping tea and hoping for a quiet shift. Suddenly, the sound of screeching tires and panicked voices filled the air. "Doctor, emergency!" Anna shouted, busting through the door. "Doctor, emergency!" Anna shouted, busting through the door. A senator had been in a car accident and he was rushed to the hospital. "Dr. Angela," Anna's called out, her voice trembling. "You're the only doctor available." Angela froze. "Me? Are you sure there's no one else?" "No time, doctor. The patient is losing blood." Angela's heart pounded as she hurried to the emergency room. The senator was lying on the stretcher, barely conscious. Nurses and assistants walked quickly, trying to stabilize him. "Doctor, we need to act fast," someone said, handing her a syringe. Angela didn't think. She grabbed the syringe and injected the senator, hoping it would help. But something felt wrong. The liquid in the syringe didn't look like the usual medicine. "Wait, what is this?" Angela whispered, but it was too late. The senator's body convulsed, and within minutes he was gone. The room fell silent. Angela stared at the lifeless body, her hands trembling. She had made a terrible mistake. The days following Senator Francis's death were a wall wound of confusion, fear, and blame. Angela barely slept or ate, replaying the scene in the emergency room over and over in her mind. What had gone wrong? She had used the syringe handed to her. Could she have made a mistake? The hospital administration initially tried to downplay the incident. They told the media the senator had succumbed to injuries from his accident, but the Francis family wasn't satisfied. "This doesn't make sense," his eldest son, Emeka Francis, told reporters. "My father was healthy. A simple car accident shouldn't have killed him. We demand an autopsy." Angela's chest tightened when she heard about the autopsy. She knew the truth would come out. She considered running, but where would she go? Instead, she stayed home waiting for the inevitable knock on her door. A week later, the results of the autopsy were released. The findings shocked the nation. Senator Francis hadn't died from the injuries caused by his car accident. Instead, his death was caused by a toxic chemical commonly used for embalming dead bodies. The media exploded with the news. Headlines screamed tragedy at General Hospital, Senator killed by medical error, and doctor injects embalming fluid into Senator. Angela's name wasn't mentioned immediately, but within days, her identity leaked. Her face was plastered across newspapers and television screens. Reporters camped outside the hospital demanding answers. The Francis family filed a formal complaint with the police demanding a full investigation. Whoever did this will pay, Emeka vouched during a press conference, his voice trembling with anger. The police began their investigation by questioning the hospital's staff. Detectives Okoro and Amaechi were assigned to the case, both seasoned officers known for their persistence. They arrived at the hospital alley one morning ready to uncover the truth. "Let's start with the NASA's Detective Okoro said. The NASA's described the chaos of the day. "We were understaffed," one NASA explained. "Most of the senior doctors were in surgery, so Dr. Angela Waititiwi." "Dr. Angela," Detective Amaiki repeated, jotting down notes. "Was she qualified to handle such an emergency?" The NASA hesitated. She was nervous, but we didn't have a choice. The patient needed immediate care." "And the syringe?" Okoro asked. "Who prepared it?" Another NASA stepped forward. "I did, but I don't know how the embalming fluid ended up in the emergency room. It should have been in the mortuary section. Could someone have placed it there by mistake?" Amaechi pressed. "It's possible," the NASA admitted, "but I don't understand how such a critical mistake could happen." When the police arrived at Angela's home, her heart sank. The officers stood at the door, the expression scream. "Dr. Angela Obi?" Detective Okoro asked. "Yes," Angela whispered, her voice barely audible. "We need you to come with us for questioning," he said. At the police station, Angela sat in a small, cold room under the hash glare of a single light bulb. The detectives wasted no time. "Dr. Obi, you were the attending physician when Senator Francis was brought in, correct?" "Yes," Angela replied, her hand trembling. "What happened that day?" Angela explained everything: the senator's condition, the rushed atmosphere, the syringe handed to her by a nurse. "And you didn't check the syringe before administering it?" Okoro asked, his tone sharp. Angela lowered her head. "No, I trusted the nurses." "Do you know what was in the syringe?" Angela's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't at the time, but I do now. It was embalming fluid. I didn't mean to have." Voice broke, and she began to sob. Okoro exchanged a glance with Joseph. "Dr. Obi, you understand that this is a serious offense. A man is dead because of your actions or negligence." Angela nodded silently, unable to speak. The detectives, once convinced Angela was solely to blame, they dug deeper into the hospital's operations and discovered a shocking pattern of mismanagement. Staff admitted that protocols were often ignored, and equipment and supplies were frequently misplaced. One junior doctor revealed the hospital is always cutting corners to save costs. This kind of mistake was bound to happen eventually. Records showed that the mortuary and emergency room shared a storage area due to overcrowding. This likely explained how the embalming fluid ended up in the emergency room, but it didn't absolve Angela of responsibility. "She should have checked," Joseph said, but the hospital's negligence also played a part. As the investigation unfolded, the media continued to fuel public outrage. Angela was painted as an incompetent doctor who had no business being in the profession. Her academic record leaked, revealing her history of poor performance and the alleged bribes her parents paid to get her through medical school. "Unqualified doctor killed senator," screamed one headline. Angela's parents were devastated. Mr. Obi refused to leave the house while Mrs. Obi wept constantly. "We only wanted what was best for her," she said, clutching an old photo of Angela as a child. After weeks of investigation, the police concluded their report. Angela was formally charged with manslaughter due to gross negligence. The hospital faced fines and lawsuits, but the focus remained on Angela. As she was led away in handcuffs, Angela felt a mix of fear and relief. Fear of what awaited her in prison, and relief that the weight of her secret was finally exposed. The courtroom buzzed with mamas as Angela was led in, her head bowed in shame. Her once pristine white coat and stethoscope had been replaced by the rough orange jumpsuit over prisoner. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Obie, sat in the front row, their faces pale and strained. They couldn't believe their daughter was at the center of such a scandal. The trial began with the prosecutor painting a damning picture of Angela's incompetence. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the prosecutor said, "this case is about more than just negligence. It's about the failure of a doctor who was unprepared to handle the responsibilities of her profession. Senator Francis's death was preventable, and we must hold Dr. Obie accountable." Angela shrunk in her seat, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to scream to explain that she never wanted to be a doctor in the first place. But none of that mattered now. The senator was dead, and she was to blame. As the trial dragged on, Angela's parents couldn't escape their guilt. They sat through every testimony hearing about how their daughter had struggled through medical school, how bribes had secured her a degree she hadn't, and how the hospital's poor management had contributed to their tragedy. One evening, after a particularly grueling day in court, Mrs. Obie broke down in their living room. "We did this to her," she sobbed, clutching her husband's arm. "Don't say that," Mr. Obie replied, though his voice trembled. "But it's true, isn't it? She told us she didn't want to study medicine. We forced her to, all because we wanted to show off to tell the world our daughter is a doct." Mr. Obie remained silent, his mind flashing back to the day Angela had fast expressed her dream of studying computer science. He remembered dismissing her, telling her she would grow to love medicine. "She's paying for our pride," Mrs. Obie continued. "Our daughter is sitting in a prison cell because we couldn't let her live her own life." For the first time, Mr. Obie realized how blind they had been. They had always believed they were acting in Angela's best interest, but they had ignored her voice, her dreams, and her happiness. Angela's defense lawyer argued that the hospital's negligence was a significant factor in the senator's death. He pointed out the lack of proper labeling on the embalming fluid and the shared storage area between the mortuary and emergency room. Dr. Obie made a mistake, yes, the lawyer admitted. But this mistake was born from a system riddled with errors and mismanagement. She was not the only one responsible. The hospital's management faced its own legal battles, but for Angela the trial was deeply personal. As witnesses testified about her lack of confidence and her academic struggles, she felt as though her entire life was being dissected for the world to see. During her testimony, Angela finally spoke her truth. "I never wanted to be a doctor," she said, her voice shaking. "I wanted to study computer science, but my parents, they thought medicine was better. I tried to make them proud, but I failed at every step. I'm sorry for what happened to Senator Francis. I would give anything to undo it." Her words hung heavy in the air, and even the judge seemed moved by her honesty. After weeks of deliberation, the jury found Angela guilty of manslaughter. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison, a relatively light sentence given the circumstances, but it felt like a lifetime to Angela. As she was led out of the courtroom, she glanced at her parents. They looked older, at their faces etched with sorrow. For the first time, Angela saw not just their disappointment, but their regret. Prison was a harsh and unforgiving world. Angela struggled to adapt to the rigid routines and the cold, concrete walls. She spent her days reflecting on her life, wondering how things could have been different. Her parents visited often, bringing her food and warm clothes, but their visits were always tinged with sadness. "We are sorry, Angela," her mother said during one visit, tears streaming down her face. "We should have listened to you." "It's too late now, Mama," Angela replied, her voice flat. But in her heart she forgave them. She knew they had acted out of love even if their choices had ruined her life. The tragedy of Angela's stories sent shockwaves through her community. Parents began to question the pressure they placed on their children. Schools held seminars about the importance of allowing students to follow their passions. One evening, a local journalist interviewed Mr. Obie. "What would you say to parents who want the best for their children?" the journalist asked. Mr. Obie sighed deeply. "I would tell them to listen," he said. Listen to your children. They know what makes them happy. Don't force your dreams onto them. It's not worth losing them. Angela's story became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of ignoring individuality and passion. 5 years passed slowly, but eventually Angela's sentence came to an end. On the day of her release, she stood at the prison gates, clutching a small bag containing her meager belongings. The sun felt strange on her skin, and the sounds of the bustling world beyond the gates were almost overwhelming. Her parents were there waiting. Mr. Obi held a bouquet and Mrs. Obi had tears streaming down her face. "Angela, my child." Her mother began stepping forward, but Angela froze. Her heart was heavy with emotions, anger, sorrow, and the faintest glimmer of hope, but she couldn't bring herself to face them yet. "I need time," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I'm grateful for everything you've done, but I need to figure out who I am without you." Her words hang in the air. Mr. Obi opened his mouth to protest, but a look from his wife stopped him. "Take all the time you need," Mrs. Obi said, her voice trembling. "We'll be here when you're ready." With that, Angela turned and walked away, unsure of where she was going, but determined to start anew. Angela had saved a small amount of money from odd jobs she did while in prison. She used it to rent a tiny apartment in a distant town far from the shadow of her past. The walls were bare, the furniture secondhand, but it was hers. For the first time in her life, she felt free. The first few months were tough. Angela had no job, no friends, and a criminal record that followed her everywhere. Employers turned her away the moment they saw her history, and the shame of her past loomed large. But Angela refused to give up. She decided to revisit the passion she had abandoned years ago: computer science. Angela began teaching herself coding using free online resources. She spent hours every day in her cramped apartment, poring over tutorials and practicing coding exercises. Her mind, once burdened by the weight of her parents' expectations, felt alive with curiosity and determination. "Maybe this is what I was meant to do all along," she thought. After months of learning, Angela took a chance and applied for a remote internship with a small tech startup. To her surprise, the company didn't ask about her criminal record. They were more interested in her skills and her willingness to learn. The internship was unpaid, but it gave Angela something priceless by chance to prove herself. She walked tirelessly, often pulling late nights to complete projects. Her supervisor, impressed by her dedication, offered her a part-time job. As Angela built her career, she also began to heal emotionally. She started attending therapy where she unpacked the years of pressure, guilt, and resentment she felt toward her parents. "They wanted what they thought was best for me," she told her therapist one day, "but they never asked me what I wanted. And now," her therapist asked, "now if I'm learning to ask myself that question." Over time, Angela's confidence grew. She joined online communities of coders and even made a few friends. For the first time in her life, she felt like she belonged somewhere. After 2 years of silence, Angela decided it was time to face her parents. She returned to their home, her heart pounding as she knocked on the door. When her mother opened the door, she burst into tears. "Angela, we thought we'd lost you forever." Her father appeared moments later, his face a mixture of relief and guilt. "We are so sorry, Angela," he said. "We made so many mistakes." Angela nodded. "I know you did. But I also know you loved me in your own way. I've forgiven you, but I need you to understand that I'm living my life on my terms now." Her parents promised to support her no matter what path she chose. Angela's career flourished. Within a few years, she had become a skilled software developer working on projects she was passionate about. She used her earnings to move into a better apartment, decorated with warmth and personality, and even adopt a catchy name, Hope. Though she maintained a cultural relationship with her parents, she kept her distance, setting boundaries to protect her newfound independence. Angela also began speaking at events and sharing her story, encouraging young people to follow their dreams and urging parents to listen to their children. "I lost years of my life trying to be someone I wasn't," she would say. "But I found my way back. You can too. Angela's journey became an inspiration to many, and her story carried powerful lessons. Listen to your children. Parents must recognize that their children are individuals with their own dreams and talents. Forcing them into careers they don't want can lead to unhappiness and unintended consequences. Pursue your passion. It's never too late to follow your dreams. Even after years of setbacks, Angela found her calling and rebuilt her life. Accountability matters. Angela's time in prison taught how to take responsibility for her actions even when circumstances were beyond her control. Resilience and growth. Life's challenges can break you or make you stronger. Angela chose to rise above her mistakes and carve out a new path for herself. Angela still had scars from her past, but they no longer defined her. She had stunned her pain into purpose, her regrets into lessons. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly free.